Struggling nurse donates blood to an emergency patient, only to learn he's a millionaire CEO who came. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Let's dive into the story now. Our story begins in the busy halls of St. Mary's Hospital. The fluorescent lights hummed above, and the steady click-clack of nurses' shoes echoed down the hallway. It was another long shift for Emma, a young nurse whose scrubs had seen better days. Her tired eyes scanned the patient charts as she moved through the ward, the weight of exhaustion heavy on her shoulders. The last few months had been brutal, long hours, barely enough pay to cover rent, and the constant worry of how she would manage her student loans. Emma had always dreamed of doing more, of making a real difference, but lately, it felt like she was just treading water. That night, as the storm clouds gathered outside, the emergency room doors slammed open. A patient had arrived, a man in critical condition. The nurses rushed to stabilize him, but there was one problem. They needed blood, and quickly. Without hesitation, Emma stepped forward, offering to donate blood, despite knowing how drained she already felt. She was used to giving her all, but something about this moment felt different. As she lay on the bed, the needle in her arm, she couldn't help but wonder if anyone would notice her sacrifice. Was it worth it? Would anyone care? The answer came sooner than she expected. Hours later, the man woke up. His eyes fluttered open, and Emma was there, watching over him. He looked confused, disoriented, but he managed to whisper, "Thank you." She smiled gently, telling him it was no big deal, just part of the job. She didn't expect to see him again, but she was wrong. The next day, as Emma was finishing her shift, a man in a sharp suit walked into the hospital, his presence commanding attention. He approached her with a smile that seemed both warm and mysterious. "Emma," he said, his voice low but confident, "I owe you more than just my life." At first, Emma didn't recognize him. But then, he said something that made her heart skip. "I'm Thomas Carter, the man you saved last night." Thomas Carter, CEO of one of the largest tech companies in the country. She froze. This was the man she had helped. The millionaire who had been lying on that hospital bed just hours ago. He seemed nothing like the businessman she had imagined. His smile was genuine, and his eyes were filled with gratitude. "I wanted to thank you properly," he said. "You gave me a second chance. I never forget people who saved my life." Emma, still in shock, could hardly find the words. "It was nothing," she replied, trying to deflect. But Thomas wasn't about to let her off that easy. "I don't think you understand," he said. "I'm not just offering you a thank you. I want to offer you something that could change your life." At that moment, Emma realized this wasn't just about blood, it was about an opportunity. But what was he offering, and why her? The next day, Emma found herself sitting in her small, dimly lit apartment, staring at her phone. It had been a whirlwind since Thomas Carter had walked into the hospital, his presence still lingering in her mind. She couldn't shake the feeling of disbelief. The man she had saved, now a billionaire CEO, wanted to help her. But why? It didn't make sense. She had only done her job, nothing extraordinary. Still, the offer hung in the air like a weight. What could someone like him possibly see in someone like her? She hadn't asked for anything, and yet here he was, offering her a chance at something bigger. Her mind raced. She had always dreamed of doing more than just getting by, but now that the opportunity was before her, she wasn't sure she was ready for it. The thought of stepping into a world so far removed from her own was both thrilling and terrifying. Was she truly deserving of such an opportunity? She barely had time to process her emotions when her phone buzzed. It was a message from Thomas. "I would like to meet with you. I think we can help each other. Let me know when you are free." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She hesitated for a moment before replying. She didn't know what to expect, but something told her that this meeting could change everything. The next morning, she found herself walking into a sleek, modern office building. The contrast between the shiny marble floors and her worn-out shoes was stark. She felt out of place, a small figure in a sea of polished professionals. As she entered the lobby, she couldn't help but feel the weight of her nerves pressing down on her chest. She had never been in a place like this before, and the thought of meeting Thomas again made her palms sweat. She was ushered into a luxurious conference room where Thomas was waiting. He looked different in this environment, his confidence amplified by the polished surroundings. He stood when she entered, offering her a warm smile that immediately put her at ease. "Emma," he said, his voice calm yet commanding. "I'm glad you could make it. I want to talk about an opportunity, one that could change your life." Emma sat across from him, trying to mask her anxiety. She couldn't help but wonder what kind of opportunity he was talking about. Was this another charity event? Or something more? "I've been thinking about what you did for me," Thomas continued. "You saved my life, and I don't take that lightly. I want to offer you a position at my company. Not just any position, but a leadership role in a new initiative we're launching, one that focuses on giving back to the community." Emma blinked, trying to process his words. A leadership role? In his company? She had no experience in corporate leadership, let alone a position that required the kind of responsibility he was suggesting. "But I'm not qualified for something like that," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Thomas smiled gently. "I know you're not. But you have something that many people in this world don't: compassion, empathy, and a genuine desire to make a difference. Those qualities are more valuable than any degree or business acumen." Emma sat back in her chair, stunned by his words. She had never thought of herself as anything special, just a nurse, struggling to get by. But here was a man who saw something in her that she had never seen in herself. He continued, "I want to create something that has a real impact, something that goes beyond profit. And I believe you can be a part of it. This is not just about money, Emma. It's about changing lives. Yours and many others." Emma was speechless. She had never imagined that something like this could happen to her. Was this the chance she had been waiting for? Was this the moment that would finally give her the opportunity to make a real difference? Thomas's words hung in the air, and she realized that, despite all her doubts, this was a turning point. She wasn't sure what the future held, but she knew one thing for sure. This was the opportunity of a lifetime. Emma sat quietly in the plush chair across from Thomas, her mind racing. She couldn't quite grasp the magnitude of what he had just offered her. A leadership role in a philanthropic initiative? She was still a nurse, barely scraping by. How could she possibly step into a role like that? But as she looked into Thomas's calm, confident eyes, something inside her stirred. A small flicker of hope, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Thomas continued speaking, but Emma barely registered his words as she tried to process the enormity of the opportunity. "I've seen firsthand what you're capable of, Emma," Thomas said, his voice steady. "You've got the heart for this. What we're doing, it's not about the bottom line. It's about helping people, making a real difference. You'll have the chance to use your experience as a nurse to lead projects that can change lives." Emma still wasn't sure she believed him, but the sincerity in his voice tugged at her. She had always wanted to help more people, do more than just care for the sick and the injured in the hospital. But this was different. This was a chance to make a difference on a larger scale. "I've been in your shoes before," Thomas continued, as if reading her mind. "I know what it feels like to doubt yourself, to wonder if you're enough. But I'm telling you now, you are. You don't have to have all the answers right away. What I need is someone who cares, someone who's willing to put in the work and grow." Emma felt a weight lift off her shoulders as his words sank in. She had always doubted her abilities, always felt like she wasn't qualified for anything beyond the confines of her current life. But here was someone who believed in her, someone who was offering her a chance to step outside her comfort zone. She couldn't deny that the thought of a new beginning, of having a real impact on the world, was enticing. She glanced down at her hands, still trembling slightly from the shock of the offer. "What would I need to do?" she asked quietly, unsure if she was ready to take the leap, but knowing deep down that this could be the change she had been waiting for. Thomas smiled, a warm, reassuring smile. "First, you'll start by shadowing me, learning about the projects we're working on. You'll meet with the team, get a feel for what we're trying to build. And when you're ready, you'll take the lead on one of our community outreach programs. It's not going to be easy, but it'll be worth it." Emma nodded slowly. This wasn't going to be easy, she knew that. But she was tired of standing still, tired of being stuck in a life that felt so small. She wanted more. More than just getting by, more than just surviving. She wanted to thrive. "Okay," she said, her voice steady for the first time in days. "I'll do it." Thomas's smile widened, and he leaned back in his chair. "I knew you would. I'm looking forward to seeing what you can do." As Emma left the meeting that day, her heart was pounding in her chest. She was both terrified and exhilarated. This was the beginning of something new, something she had never imagined for herself. But as she stepped out into the bright, busy streets of the city, she felt a surge of determination. She didn't know where this journey would take her, but she knew one thing for sure. She was ready to embrace it. This was her chance to step into a world of possibility, to transform not just her life, but the lives of others as well. The following week, Emma began her training under Thomas's guidance. She was introduced to the team, a group of passionate individuals who were all dedicated to the company's philanthropic initiatives. At first, Emma felt like an outsider. Her worn scrubs and humble background felt like a stark contrast to the sleek offices and polished professionals around her. But Thomas had been right. They didn't see her as an outsider. They saw her as a vital part of the team, someone who could bring fresh perspective and a genuine desire to help. As the days passed, Emma found herself growing more comfortable in her new role. She shadowed Thomas during meetings, attended brainstorming sessions, and began to understand the scope of the projects they were working on. There was one project in particular that caught her attention, a community outreach program aimed at providing healthcare services to underserved neighborhoods. It was something close to her heart, something she had always wished she could do more for. She began to take on small tasks related to the program, from researching local healthcare needs to reaching out to community leaders. Slowly, her confidence began to grow. But despite her increasing comfort with her work, there was still a nagging voice in the back of her mind. She wasn't entirely sure she was ready for this. What if she failed? What if she wasn't enough? Those fears were amplified during a meeting with Thomas and the team. They were discussing the next steps for the outreach program when Thomas turned to her, his gaze steady. "Emma," he said, his voice calm but direct. "We need a leader for this program. Someone who can really take charge and push it forward. I believe you're the right person for the job." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected him to throw her into the spotlight so soon. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words caught in her throat. "I'm not sure if I'm ready," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. Thomas smiled gently, his expression softening. "You won't know unless you try," he said. "And I'm here to support you every step of the way." Emma hesitated, her mind swirling with doubt. She had come so far, but this was a big leap. Taking on the responsibility of leading such an important program felt overwhelming. "What if I make a mistake?" she asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Thomas's smile didn't waver. "Everyone makes mistakes, Emma. But the only way to learn and grow is by taking risks. I believe in you. You've already shown that you have the heart for this." Those words stuck with her long after the meeting ended. She spent the rest of the day contemplating the decision. She knew that this was her chance to make a real impact, to help people in a way she had always dreamed of. But could she really do it? Could she lead this initiative? That night, as Emma lay in bed, she thought back to her days working as a nurse in the hospital, the long hours, the constant strain. She had always wanted to do more, to help more, but had never imagined that an opportunity like this would come her way. Maybe it was time to step up, to stop doubting herself, and take the leap. The next morning, Emma walked into the office with a new sense of determination. She was ready to take on the challenge, ready to lead the community outreach program and prove that she could make a difference. She wasn't sure what the future would hold, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was on the right path. And as she sat down at her desk, ready to begin the next chapter of her journey, she couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement bubbling inside her. This was just the beginning. Emma stood in front of the large whiteboard in the conference room, the words Community Outreach Program written in bold letters across the top. She could feel the weight of the task ahead of her. This was her chance to prove herself, not just to Thomas, but to herself. She had spent the last few days working tirelessly with the team, gathering information, planning, and organizing the steps for the outreach initiative. But now, standing in front of everyone, the reality of leading the project hit her. She felt a mix of excitement and nervousness in her chest. This wasn't just about creating another program. This was about helping people, making a real difference in the lives of those who needed it most. She glanced around the room at the team members, all experienced professionals who had been working on similar projects for years. She was the newest member of the group, the one with the least experience, and yet here she was, taking the reins. "All right, everyone." Emma said, trying to steady her nerves. Let's get started. She could feel the eyes on her as she spoke, but instead of shrinking under the pressure, she took a deep breath and began outlining the plan. The first step was to target underserved communities, focusing on providing access to healthcare, mental health support, and basic resources. She spoke about partnering with local clinics, hospitals, and other organizations to maximize their reach. Emma felt herself growing more confident with each word. She wasn't just reading from notes. She was genuinely passionate about this project, and she could see the team starting to catch that energy. As the meeting went on, Emma's ideas flowed more easily. She realized that she had a unique perspective to offer. Her background as a nurse gave her insight into the healthcare needs of these communities, and she was determined to make sure those needs were met. By the end of the meeting, the team was aligned on the next steps. There were still plenty of challenges ahead, but Emma felt a sense of accomplishment. She had taken the first step toward leading this project, and it felt good. But just as she thought things were going well, a new challenge arose. That afternoon, Thomas called her into his office. She walked in, her heart racing, unsure of what to expect. Emma, he said, his voice calm but serious, I've been impressed with your progress so far. But there's one more thing I need from you. We have a major event coming up next week, a fundraising gala for our outreach program. I want you to present the plan to the board. You'll be leading the presentation. Emma's stomach dropped. She had never been comfortable speaking in front of large groups, let alone a room full of high-powered executives. She stuttered, but Thomas cut her off. I know it's a big step, but I believe you can do it. This is your chance to really show them what you're capable of. You've got the heart and the vision. Now it's time to show them your leadership. Emma stared at him, unsure if she was ready for this. It felt like the pressure was mounting, but she knew there was no turning back now. She had come this far, and she couldn't back out. Okay, she said, her voice barely a whisper, but the resolve behind the words was clear. I'll do it. That night, Emma stayed up late preparing for the presentation. She worked on her slides, practiced her speech, and rehearsed in front of the mirror. Her nerves were overwhelming, but she reminded herself why she was doing this. It wasn't just about impressing the board, it was about the people who needed this program. She couldn't let fear stand in the way of that. The next evening, she stood in front of the room at the gala, looking out at the sea of faces. She could feel her palms sweating, but as she stepped up to the podium, something inside her clicked. This was her moment. She was ready. Emma took a deep breath and began to speak. The words came more easily than she expected, and as she looked out at the board members, she saw that they were listening, really listening. When she finished, there was a long silence. Then, one by one, the board members began to nod, offering their approval. Thomas stood and clapped, his smile wide. Well done, Emma, he said. You've proven yourself. As the gala continued into the night, Emma felt a sense of pride she had never experienced before. She had stepped into the unknown, faced her fears, and come out on top. But more than that, she had taken a giant leap toward making a real difference in the world. And for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. Emma's life had changed in ways she hadn't imagined just a few months ago. After her successful presentation at the gala, she was thrust into the leadership role she had always doubted she could handle. The community outreach program began to take shape, and Emma found herself meeting with local clinic leaders, community organizers, and healthcare professionals. It wasn't easy. The pressure was immense, but the more she immersed herself in the work, the more confident she became. She could feel the momentum building, not just for the project, but for her own personal growth. Every day, she learned something new, whether it was about the healthcare system, about leadership, or about herself. But as much as Emma thrived on the work, there were moments of doubt. Late nights were spent poring over spreadsheets, and early mornings were filled with phone calls and meetings. She sometimes felt like she was barely keeping up. The weight of the responsibility often felt overwhelming. She knew that Thomas was watching her closely, and although he had always been supportive, there was a part of her that feared disappointing him. She didn't want to let him, or herself, down. One afternoon after a particularly grueling meeting, Emma found herself in the office alone, her head resting in her hands. She stared at the calendar on her desk, where a series of deadlines were marked in red. The pressure was starting to take its toll. Just then, Thomas walked in. He looked at her for a moment before speaking. Emma, how are you doing? He asked, his voice calm but filled with concern. Emma didn't look up at first. She didn't want him to see how fragile she felt. "I'm fine," she said, trying to sound convincing. But Thomas didn't buy it. He walked over to her and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're doing great work," he said gently. "But you don't have to do it all on your own." Emma finally looked up at him, her eyes tired but grateful. She had been so focused on proving herself, on pushing through the challenges, that she hadn't stopped to ask for help. "I just want to make sure it all goes well," she admitted. "I know how important this is." Thomas smiled warmly. "It is important, but so are you, Emma. You're only human. Lean on your team when you need to." The sincerity in his words struck her, and for the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to breathe a little easier. She wasn't alone in this. She had people who cared, who were willing to support her. Over the next few weeks, Emma began to delegate more. She trusted her team, and slowly, she started to feel the weight of the project lift. It was still a lot of work, but it wasn't all hers to carry. She realized that leadership wasn't just about being strong all the time. It was about knowing when to ask for help and when to lean on others. And as she did, she saw the project begin to flourish. The outreach program started reaching more people than she ever thought possible, and the partnerships she had helped form were making a real impact. Thomas noticed the change in her too. "You're doing amazing work," he said one day, after a particularly successful meeting. "I knew you had it in you." Emma smiled, feeling the weight of the past few months finally begin to ease. She was proud of what she had accomplished, but she was even prouder of the woman she was becoming. The next big step came sooner than expected. The program was ready to launch its first major initiative, a free health clinic in an underserved area of the city. Emma had poured her heart and soul into this, and now it was finally happening. As she stood at the entrance of the clinic, watching the team set up for the grand opening, she couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. This was what she had worked for. This was the difference she had always wanted to make. And as she turned to Thomas, who was standing beside her, she felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything." He looked at her, a soft smile on his face. "You did this, Emma. You made it happen." And in that moment, Emma realized that it wasn't just the program that had changed, it was her. She had come a long way from the unsure nurse who had once doubted her worth. Now, she was a leader, someone who had the power to make a real difference. And the journey was just beginning. As Emma stood in the office, staring at the pile of paperwork in front of her, she couldn't help but feel a wave of doubt wash over her. The community health clinic had been a success, the outreach programs were thriving, but there were still challenges ahead. The pressure of managing the initiatives, keeping the team motivated, and ensuring that everything stayed on track was starting to take its toll. She had been pushing herself harder than ever, but now, with the weight of the responsibility heavier than before, she was beginning to feel overwhelmed. It wasn't just the work that was getting to her. It was the constant feeling of inadequacy. She had always been a fighter, someone who refused to give up, but lately, the doubts had been creeping in. Was she really capable of managing all of this? Was she truly the right person for the job? Those thoughts lingered in the back of her mind as she left the office and walked to her car, the cool evening air doing little to calm her nerves. She sat in the driver's seat for a few moments, her hands gripping the steering wheel as she tried to steady her breathing. The silence in the car felt suffocating, just as she was about to start the engine. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from Thomas. "Hey, Emma, how are you holding up?" She stared at the message for a moment, unsure of how to respond. She didn't want to admit to him that she was struggling. He had put so much faith in her, and she didn't want to let him down. But she knew she couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. "I'm doing okay," she typed back, though she wasn't sure if she believed it herself. A few moments later, her phone buzzed again. "I'm here if you need to talk. Don't try to do it all alone. You're doing incredible work, but you're only human." The sincerity in his message hit her harder than she expected. She had been so focused on proving herself, on trying to live up to everyone's expectations, that she had forgotten to take care of herself. She had never been good at asking for help. But Thomas had always been there, offering support, offering guidance, and now it was time to lean on him. Emma took a deep breath and replied, "I don't know if I'm doing enough. I feel like I'm constantly falling short." Almost instantly, Thomas replied, "Emma, you're doing more than enough. The impact you've already made is huge. It's okay to have doubts, but don't let them stop you from continuing. You're making a difference in ways you might not even realize yet. His words were a lifeline, pulling her from the self-doubt that had been clouding her mind. She felt a weight lift off her shoulders. It wasn't just about the work, it was about her well-being too. She wasn't alone in this. And for the first time in weeks, Emma allowed herself to rest. The next day, Emma took a step back. She decided to take the weekend off. She spent time with her family, caught up on some much-needed sleep, and focused on recharging. It wasn't a luxury she was used to, but as the weekend passed, she felt a shift within herself. She realized that it was okay to take a break, to step back, and to ask for help when needed. By the time Monday rolled around, Emma was ready to face the challenges ahead with renewed energy. She walked into the office, her mind clear and focused. The work was still demanding, but she now knew that she didn't have to carry the burden alone. She had a team, she had Thomas, and most importantly, she had her own strength. Emma was no longer just a nurse trying to prove herself. She was a leader, someone capable of guiding others, and someone who had learned that self-care was just as important as the work she was doing. And with that realization, she felt more confident than ever, ready to continue her journey toward making a lasting impact on the world around her. As the weeks went by, Emma continued to lead the community outreach program with more confidence than ever. The initiatives were growing rapidly, and more partnerships were forming, reaching further into the neighborhoods that needed help the most. But even with all the progress, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. There were days when she found herself standing at the window of her office, looking out at the city, wondering if she was truly making a difference. Was the work she was doing enough? It was during one of these moments of doubt that Thomas called her into his office. He greeted her with his usual warm smile, but Emma could sense that something was different. "Emma," he began, his tone serious yet kind. "I've been thinking a lot about the future of this program. You've done amazing work, but I want to offer you something more." Emma felt a knot tighten in her stomach. What more could there possibly be? "I want you to take this program national," Thomas continued, his gaze steady. "I believe what you've built here could help so many more communities. We have the resources, the support, and the opportunity to expand. But I need you to take the lead on this, to scale it beyond just one city." The idea of taking the program to a national level was both thrilling and terrifying. Emma had always been driven by the need to help people, but could she really manage such a monumental task? Could she handle the pressure of scaling the program to reach people all over the country? Thomas must have sensed her hesitation. "I know this is a big step, but I wouldn't ask if I didn't believe you were ready," he said. "You've already shown the world what you're capable of, Emma. Now it's time to take this to the next level." Emma stood there for a moment, processing his words. She had worked so hard to get to this point, and now she was being asked to expand on everything she had built. The pressure was immense, but deep down, she knew this was the opportunity of a lifetime. She thought back to the days when she was just a nurse, unsure of her place in the world. She had come so far, and now she had the chance to make an even greater impact. "I'll do it," she said, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside her. "I'll take the lead." Thomas smiled, his eyes filled with pride. "I knew you would. Let's start planning." Over the next few months, Emma worked tirelessly to build a strategy for national expansion. She collaborated with experts, secured funding, and built a framework that would allow the program to grow while staying true to its mission of helping communities in need. It wasn't easy. There were many late nights, countless phone calls, and moments when she felt completely overwhelmed. But through it all, Emma felt a sense of purpose that had been missing before. She wasn't just leading a project anymore. She was shaping the future. As the launch date approached, Emma found herself reflecting on how far she had come. The young nurse who had once doubted her ability to make a difference was now standing at the helm of a national initiative that could change the lives of countless people. And yet, even with all the success and progress, one thing remained constant: her dedication to the people she was serving. She wasn't in this for recognition or praise. She was in it because she genuinely wanted to help. When the day of the national launch finally arrived, Emma stood before a crowd of colleagues, supporters, and community leaders, ready to announce the next chapter of the outreach program. The nerves that had once consumed her were gone, replaced by a quiet confidence. As she spoke about the program's growth, its impact, and its future, Emma knew that this was just the beginning. There would be challenges ahead, and there would be times when she felt uncertain, but she also knew that she had the strength to face them. This journey had brought her to a place she had never imagined, and she was ready for whatever came next. As the event came to a close, Thomas approached her, his expression warm. "You did it, Emma," he said. "You've built something incredible." Emma smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. "We did it," she corrected him. "We're just getting started." And with that, Emma knew that the future was full of endless possibilities, and no matter what challenges lay ahead, she was ready to meet them head-on. Months passed, and the national launch of the community outreach program was a resounding success. Emma had truly stepped into her role as a leader, and the impact of the program was far-reaching. She watched as communities across the country gained access to healthcare services, and the partnerships that had once seemed impossible became a reality. Each milestone was a testament to the hard work, the late nights, and the sacrifices that she had made, but it was also a reflection of the incredible team she had built around her. Thomas remained by her side, offering guidance and support whenever she needed it. He had become more than just a mentor. He was a friend. The bond between them grew stronger as they faced the challenges that came with expanding a program of this magnitude. It wasn't always easy. There were setbacks, unexpected roadblocks, and moments when Emma questioned if they were doing enough. But through it all, she learned the true meaning of resilience. She had started this journey with doubt, unsure if she had the strength to succeed, but now, she was stronger than ever. With every success, Emma grew more confident in her abilities. She had built something that was making a real difference in the world, and that was more rewarding than anything she could have imagined. But even as the program flourished, Emma knew there was still work to be done. She continued to push herself, but this time, she did so with a sense of purpose that went beyond just the work. She had come to understand that true leadership was not about being perfect. It was about leading with compassion, with integrity, and with a deep understanding of the people she was serving. As Emma stood on stage at another fundraiser, speaking to a room full of supporters, she realized just how far she had come. She was no longer the unsure nurse who had doubted her place in the world. She was a leader, someone who had learned the power of persistence, the importance of asking for help, and the value of self-care. She had transformed her life and the lives of countless others along the way. The applause from the crowd filled the room, but Emma wasn't focused on the recognition. She was focused on the faces in the crowd, the people whose lives had been changed by the program she had helped build. In that moment, she knew that everything she had done, every challenge, every doubt, every triumph, had been worth it. As she stepped down from the stage, Thomas approached her, his smile wide. "You've done it, Emma," he said. "You've created something incredible." Emma smiled back, her heart full. "We did it," she corrected him. "Together." And as they stood there, in the glow of the evening's success, Emma felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. She had built something that mattered, something that would continue to make a difference for years to come. She had found her purpose, and it was only the beginning of what she could accomplish. As she looked around the room, at the people whose lives had been touched by the program, Emma knew that this was just the first chapter in a long journey, and she was ready for whatever came next.